Hello everyone, welcome to The Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry, and today I'm going to continue the series of videos I've been doing on literary award winners that I've read. Today I'm going to start with the Nobel Prize. That's an award that's began in 1901 and is awarded by the Swedish Academy for a lifetime achievement. So it's given to a writer for their body of work, as opposed to like most literary awards, individual books. So it began in 1901, and I'm going to break this into probably about 5 individual videos because there's a huge amount of books to show, and I don't want to do an extremely long video. So today I think I'll be doing 1901 to 1928, and so I think I'll go ahead and get started. The first, I should mention, I've read at least one book by each of the winners of the Nobel, except for 2. And unfortunately, the very first one awarded, Sully Prudhomme, is one of the writers I haven't read. He is from France, wrote poetry, but I just haven't been able to locate any translations of his work, so I haven't read them. And I'll be just showing the books today. I won't really be discussing much about them, and my plans are to later do individual videos of most of the writers, or many of the writers, and I can discuss the books in those. So I'll begin. So 1901, Sully Prudhomme, but I haven't read anything. In 1902, the winner was Theodor Mommsen from Germany. He's wrote history, and most of the books he's known for are the history of Rome. And they're large volumes, very big books, and I wasn't really interested in getting something like that to read. But luckily, I was able to find just the perfect book. It's The Provinces of the Roman Empire, and it's basically about the outlying areas, like northern Italy, Spain, France, or Gallic Republic, those areas that Roman Empire had expanded to. So Theodor Mommsen, and then that's all I've read from him. Then in 1903, the winner was Bjørnson of Norway. He wrote poetry, novel, and drama, and I've read a few of his works. I should mention the books I'll be showing, a lot of the early writers are reprints that I've located that are put out by various publishers of hard to find and out of print books. And they're condensed versions, but they give you a pretty good idea of the writer and his work. So the first one I have is A Happy Boy. Next is The Fisher Girl. Captain Mansana and Mother's Hands, so 2 short novellas in one issue. Arnie. I do have one of his books from an original publication, Sunny Hill, and it's without a dust cover, so there isn't a lot to see. Next is Absalom's Hair. And finally, I have a book I bought that I thought was his just short stories by Bjornson. That's what the book cover would lead you to believe, but there was just one story by him. The rest of the stories were other writers, but it gave me something to read. Then in 1904, there were two winners. The first is Frederick Mistral of France. He wrote poetry, but I was able to find a memoir of him, by him, and just really excellent work, excellent writing, but I enjoyed it very much. The other winner, that was all I've read from Mistral. The other winner was Jose Echegaray of Spain. He wrote drama, and I have just this one little play that I read, The Son of Don Juan. Okay, then in 1905, the winner was Heinrich Steinkowitz of Poland. He wrote novel, and I've read 4 of his books. The first is In Desert and Wilderness, and this is more of a young adult adventure story type thing, but it was still an excellent read. I have a book of 3 short stories by Steinkowitz. The next, Quo Vadis, is probably his best known book. And finally, With Fire and Sword. And this is actually part of a series of books by Steinkowitz, but I've just read the one, but it's a huge book just on its own. Okay, let's see. In 1906, the winner was Gesui Carducci, and I can guarantee I'll be mispronouncing a lot of the names, but I do the best I can, so please bear with me. He's from Italy, and his category is poetry, and I read the one book, Selected Verse by Carducci. Then in 1907, the winner was a very well-known writer, Rudyard Kipling from the UK. He wrote novels, short story, and poetry, and I have a few of his books. Probably his best-known book is Jungle Books. Then Captains Courageous. This was kind of a difficult book to read just because of the heavy dialogue he uses, and he does that in a few of his books. This is Kim. Then this is 2 novellas in one issue, Soldiers 3 and In Black and White. This is a short little book I found I'd never heard of before. It's called France at War, and it was actually Kipling had traveled around France during World War I, and he would interview the peasants as they worked out in the field and the war raged around them. So it was quite a good book. This is a little short little book of plays by Kipling, and it's the story of the Gadsbys. Okay, next is Under the Deodars. This is, again, one of those older books with no dust cover, so not a lot to see. And Plain Tales from the Hills. Then in 1908, the winner was Rudolf Eucken of Germany. He wrote Philosophy, and I just read one book, The Meaning and Value of Life and Life's Basis and Life's Ideals. And I really didn't get a lot out of this book. It basically, to me, just seemed like he was trying to reconcile all of the various religions, there's hundreds of them out there, into one cohesive meaning, but I just didn't care for the book at all. Okay, 1909 was a writer who I really had never read, never had heard of, until I started doing the Nobel Prize winners, and she's a writer I really enjoy. Selma Lagerlöf of Sweden, and she wrote novel and short story. So the first is The Wonderful Adventures of Nils, and this is a children's adventure story, but just really well written and quite good. Next is The Emperor of Portugalia. This is the Saga of Gösta Berling. The Outcast. The Treasure. From a Swedish Homestead. Invisible Links. Jerusalem. Girl from the Marsh Croft. And finally, The Miracles of Antichrist, Invisible Links, and Christ Legends. This is 3 books in one. One of them I had already read. And I should mention, she was very religious, and a lot of the books she wrote were kind of had a religious bent, and this in particular was quite so. Okay, 1910. The winner was Paul van Hase of Germany. He wrote poetry, drama, and novel. And I should mention, all of the books I've found by him are just Paul Hase. They don't put the Vaughn in it. But anyway, the first one is The Dead Lake and Other Tales. At the Ghost Hour. And In Paradise. And it says volume 1, so I'm assuming there's more volumes to it, but this is all I read by him. Okay, then in 1911, the winner was Maurice Maeterlinck of Belgium. He wrote drama, poetry, and essay, and I've just read 3 books of essay by him. The first is The Intelligence of Flowers. And I should mention, just wonderful writing, but his interpretations a lot of times are from the period. So it was well over 100 years ago that he wrote this, and there wasn't a lot of science available. So he misinterpreted a lot of things that he. But anyway, this is The Intelligence of Flowers. Beautifully written book, though. The Life of Bees. And The Unknown Guest. And that really applies to this one. Okay, in 1912, the winner was Gerhard Hauptmann of Germany. He wrote drama and novel, and I've read 2 books by him. This first one is 3 plays, The Weavers, Hanel, and The Beaver Coat. And then just one of those thin little condensed versions, Thiel, and that's all I've read by him. In 1913, the winner was Rabindranath Tagore. He's from India, and he wrote poetry and novel. And I've only read 2 books by him, Stories from Tagore. And this is really just children's stories. It wasn't, it's meant for children anyway. And I read 1 book of poetry, Gitanjali, extremely good poetry. I enjoyed this book very much. In 1914, there was no award given, and then in 1915, the winner was Romain Rolland of France. He wrote novel, and I've read 2 of his books. The Life of Ramakrishna, and this is really just a small little biography of Michelangelo. Okay, then in 1916, the winner was Werner von Heidenstam, and I've just read this one small copy of The Soothsayer. In 1917, there were 2 winners. The first is Carl Jellerup of Denmark. He wrote poetry, but I've read just this one, and it's actually a novel, Minna. Then the other winner in 1917 is Henrik Pontoppidan of Denmark. He wrote novel. I've read 2 of his books, Emmanuel, Our Children of the Soil. And this is a book that, it's actually a recent publication that I came across. It's Lucky Pear, and it's just really extremely good book. It makes me wish there was more of his work out in translation, because I thought this was just an excellent book. Okay, 1918, there was no winner again, but then in 1919, the winner was Karl Spittler of Switzerland. He wrote poetry, and he's the second of the Nobel Prize winners that I haven't read. There's just no translations available anywhere. In 1920, the winner was Knut Hamsun of Norway, and he wrote novel, and I read a few of his. Hunger, The Women at the Pump, is closed. Mothwise. Growth of the soil. And finally, mysteries. Okay, then in 1921 is another one of the writers I had never read until I started doing this Nobel Prize thing. And I've actually just about read, I think, everything he wrote. He's just a writer I really love. His name is Anatole France, from France, and he wrote novel and poetry, and so I'll go through this list. The Revolt of the Angels, the Queen Petticoat, The Man Who Married a Dumb Wife. Interesting title. Dumb in this book is referring to unable to speak. The Gods Will Have Blood. Penguin Island. I should mention, he wrote a lot of satires of religion. That's one of the things I really enjoyed about his, and this is one of them. This is probably one of my all-time favorite books, The Crime of Sylvester Bernard. It's about an old man who collects books, so I kind of identified with it. The Elm Tree on the Mall. Next is Honeybee, and this is a children's fairy tale, but extremely well written. You know, I think kids would really enjoy it even today. Let's see. The Merry Tales of Jacques Turnebrock. Okay, this is Balthasar. And I've got several books that are were all printed evidently as a series, so they have very similar covers. This is get the right light here. Cleo and the Chateau de Visayavix. Pardon my French. It's something like that. The Mummer's Tale. The Seven Wives of Bluebeard. Mother of Pearl. Jocasta and the Famished Cat. The Amethyst Ring. The Garden of Epicurus. At the Sign of the Reine Petticoat. This is a short story compilation called The Golden Tales of Anatole France. The Amethyst, or the White Stone. The Bloom of Life. The Wicker Work Woman. And then a few of these reprint type things. Thais. The Aspirations of Jean Servade, The Red Lily, The Well of St. Clair, The Miracle of the Great St. Nicholas. This is actually just a short story, and I think it's in one of the short story collections by him that I've read. And finally, Krakenbill, and it's kind of a fancy book in a case. And that's everything I've read by Anatole France. Then in 1922, the winner was Jacinto Benavente of Spain. He wrote drama, and I just read the one little book of his. It's a play, just very clever though, very clever play. I enjoyed this one. In 1923, the winner was William Butler Yeats. He's from Ireland, and he wrote poetry. Then in 1924, the winner was Władysław Reymont of Poland, and he wrote novel. I've read two of his books, The Comedienne and A Pilgrimage to Jasna Gora. Okay, in 1925, the winner was George Bernard Shaw from the UK. He wrote drama, and I've just read this one book of plays, 6 plays. And probably the best known play in this is Pygmalion. In 1926, the winner was Grazia Deledda of Italy. She wrote poetry and novel, and I've read 2 of her books, Reeds in the Wind and Cosima. In 1927, the winner was Henri Bergson of France. Henri Bergson of France. He wrote philosophy, and I've read the one book, Creative Evolution, and it's there wasn't a lot of science known when he wrote this, so he basically just relied on philosophy to explain evolution. Then, finally, in 1928, the last writer I'll present in this video is Sigrid Undset of Norway. She wrote novel, and I've read 3 of her books. The Axe. This is part of a trilogy, Kristen Lavin's daughter, The Cross. That's the first of this series. Then I didn't read the middle one, but I did read the last one of that series, and this is The Bridal Wreath. And that concludes all of the books I read for this first series. And so I want to thank you for watching, and I'll be doing the second one starting in 1929 here pretty soon.